1, the Savior will return to the earth in power and great glory to reign personally during a millennium of righteousness and peace. 2, at the time of his coming, there will be a destruction of the wicked and a resurrection of the righteous. 3, no one knows the time of his coming.
Travis Wayne Goodsell, here we go. Over all these years, ever since I found out in November 4th, 2016, that America was going to be destroyed. Solar eclipse. It's all true. All true. Here we are. It's all true. I've had to do research on the scriptures, and I shared that with you guys. I don't keep secrets to myself. I had to do the pioneer research of things that nobody else had figured out, deciphering Paleo-Hebrew. It's not a secret. I don't make stuff up. I show you how it is done. Show you the scientific process. And likewise, for going over history. There is a scientific process that must be adhered to. You can't make stuff up. You can't pick and choose what you want to accept and put in on Wikipedia. You have to put in all evidence. Evidence, not hearsay, not false accusation, witness testimonies. Evidence, the 5 physical sentences. So, in the Doctrine and Covenants year in 2017, near the end, as we were about to have the lesson on the assassination of Joseph Smith, my neighbor in West Valley asked me before Sunday school began, did you know Joseph Smith had a pistol? And I replied, yeah, my 3rd great grandfather is John Solomon Fulmer. I went, oh. Did you know Joseph had 2? No, I did not. I only knew what my family had passed down. And so I went home and would eventually go searching on the internet for the evidence, not people's spiritual witness testimonies of faith promotion or doubt promotion. Evidence, going over the crime scene of Carthage jail. And in the course of gathering the evidence, all of a sudden I went, oh crap. And so I went back to the beginning with Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack and their young family in Vermont. And again, collected the evidence, compiled them together, and I would publish that collected evidence on Amazon. Don't buy it. And then would eventually do publications of the evidence, doing a narrative of the evidence. And over these years, I've been doing church history videos covering additional information, evidence that I would find, going over them with you. And other times I would go over individuals that get brought up, and I would do a check on them, and I would tell you how I do the research and how I recommend you guys do your research, and those who are ex-foes who do videos on church history, I'm trying to correct you so that you don't spread falsehoods all over the world, being so popular, more than me, obviously. And trying to get you to understand the evidence has to apply to names, places, events, and dates, and have them separate but linked to each other, so that'll make it easier to find them. Wait a minute, there was a date for this place. What was that date? Makes it easier if you have it all done up. And it takes time. Church history is a massive undertaking. It is not something you can just walk right into and go, oh, yeah, I got it. I know everything now. There are so many interconnecting links. So much false information that you got to weed through with the evidence to identify who's lying, who's telling the truth, what actually happened, what is not being mentioned, and etc., etc. And so this is during the same time period when the church is making their moves on me to destroy me and have me murdered again, failing the first time. They keep on trying. They know who I am. They've been stalking me, and they are pissed when I leak information. My video in July of 2017 just crushes this church, and there were 40,000 who saw that video. Where are they now? Mormons cannot just run and hide from this. The evidence leads to the truth, not spiritual witness feelings. So in the 80s, Mark Hoffman pulled a fast one on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints by forging documents. And there's the infamous picture published in the Deseret News on May, is that there we go. I had to resize it because people put small pictures online. What the hell, guys? What the hell? So yeah, there's this, I'm hoping this will be less than 4 hours. I'm hoping I won't get cyber terrorized. And so I'm going to have to summarize stuff until we get to the main part. So understand, I have done and can do a fuller video explanation for the individual events. I've done the research, I've collected the evidence, developed the theories, run the tests, I've established facts. I don't just tell you to do it and then not do it myself. And yet Mormons want to deny and lie and spread falsehoods all around the world, and then threaten other people who do expose the truth. With the javelin, with the javelin. And so the infamous photo from the Deseret News, on the article of it, I have both the infamous photo and the Deseret News article. Photo by Jed A. Clark, Deseret News, May 3rd, 1980. So you got from left to right, Mark Hoffman, Eldon Tanner, President Spencer W. Kimball, Marion G. Romney, Boyd K. Packer, and Gordon B. Hinckley. He and I would have several one-on-ones before he died. So yeah, the salamander letter. Got the salamander letter. So understand, everybody else in the world is confused. Why did he do it? What was the point? We don't understand. It was easy. He, as a Mormon, found out the church lies to us about church history. What are they covering up? And so with Mark Hoffman, the church was able to escape this, despite their utter humiliation as not being able to discern with the priesthood that it was a forgery. Utter humiliation. And so yeah, the TV show based on it, you know, Hulu, Netflix, wherever it was on, has helped the world understand how evil this church is. How they raise up Mormons to be murderers. And that's murders among Mormons. Or was that the other Mormon murders? Well, those were FLDS, Travis. There's still a branch off from Brigham Young. You can't just say that you're not that religion when they come from the same source. Warren Jeffs, Allreds, Bundys, all from the same source. Mormons cannot escape it. Mormons cannot deny it. And they have to. And they do. And lie and deny to the rest of the world. So yeah, it was easy. He found out the church was lying to us about church history. So he forged documents of church history to expose their lies about church history. But Mark Hoffman didn't know what the church was covering up, what the church didn't want people to know. And this is where I get to expose, yet again, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, September 6th came along in 1993. In the month of September, 6 Mormons got fired and excommunicated for being faith promoting. Can't be faith promoting. They were doing research on church history in the wake of Mark Hoffman, trying to protect and defend the church, trying to explain how Mark Hoffman was a fraud and therefore the church is true, and they're going to do real church history and expose the truth, show the church is true. These are faithful Mormons. This is what everybody needs to understand. They didn't become an anti-Mormon, antichrist, apostate, Korahor and make stuff up. As Mormons would lead you to believe. And so you have Lynn Canaveral Whitesides. They only put, is a Mormon feminazi. She was excommunicated because of her speaking on a mother in heaven. Yeah, that's just so un-Christian-like of her. That's pagan stuff. I was taught as a child. It was well understood. There's a mother in heaven. We all knew it. We all have a hymn about it. It's taught to us. It's one of those Mormon myths that developed because the church patriarchy won't talk about it, other than to allude to it. Especially when they want to convince women not to become a lesbian. And so it was more widely talked about. And so yes, as a woman in the church, yeah, she wants to know more about Mother in Heaven. The church is keeping it a secret. And in fact, they used as their excuse not to tell us about it with, she is so sacred, so holy, that we don't want to even talk about her. There's a different reason why, and it has to do with Brigham Young. Heavenly Father was a polygamist. That's why we don't talk about it anymore. Because the manifesto says we promise, fine, okay, we really sincerely promise now. All right, fine, we'll put it in our scriptures. We will not practice polygamy or teach it. And thus why we don't talk about a mother in heaven. Because Heavenly Father had polygamous wives, according to Brigham Young. And one of those polygamous wives is Mary, the mother of Jesus, who's the daughter of Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. Probably the first wife. It's just awful. But no, all of the pre-Christian religions all had heavenly mothers. There's Hera. Who was so loving towards Hercules. This is going to be a long video if I can't stop laughing. We're just supposed to skim over it. We're not doing a video on it. And so, gotta excommunicate her. She's going to leak polygamy. Can't have that happen, and so that's why they excommunicated her when they did. Avraham Gileadi. Oh, what a naughty, naughty boy. How dare you talk about the Jewish Christ in the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith. But he merged him with Jesus Christ. What they have written here in Wikipedia, his argument that the Isaiah prophecies pointed to a human Davidic king who would emerge in the last days. You know, the Jewish Christ. They won't even say the Jewish Christ. Apart from Jesus Christ. Was controversial. To say the least. To say the least. So yeah, this is just sick and wrong why they won't talk about this correctly. And I've gone over him on several occasions, as he's the one who put in the HEBs in our footnotes in the Bible, Old Testament. And so when you see an IE or an OR, it means the church said no. We don't want that in our scripture footnotes. We're putting this instead. Right, Nelson? And the reason why, obviously, they've got to deceive us in making us believe this is a Christian religion, which everybody should know is a fraud created by Constantine because of what they did to the Jews. So, is Joseph correct? Is the Book of Mormon and the Bible correct? Is there a Jewish Christ? When is he coming? Which religion will he be from? Only those who've been following me know what I mean. He's a Mormon. That's what they didn't want you to know. Because it's not just a human Davidic king who would emerge in the last days, separate from Jesus. It's a Mormon who is the Jewish Christ, side by side with Jesus. Wrong, Avram. There's just the Davidic king. Paul Toscano. He wrote Strangers in Paradox. Ooh, there's our theme song. All sing along. All sing along. Exploration and Mormon theology. He co-founded the Mormon Alliance and wrote The Sanctity of Dissent and its sequel, Sacrament of Doubt. But the controversial book they put first, even though that was the first book, and the second one was also before 1993. So those two books, second one seems to be the creation of the Mormon Alliance seemed to be where he crossed the line for the church. It's September 19th, 1993. He got excommunicated. Apostasy and false teaching. So it's unclear. I'm not seeing what it was. According to Toscano, the actual reason was insubordination and refusing to curb his sharp criticism of church leaders' preference for legalism, ecclesiastical tyranny, whitewashed Mormon history, and hierarchical authoritarianism. And so, yeah, he doesn't understand what I'm about to tell you in this video as to why. Maxine Hanks is also a feminazi. She compiled and edited the Anthology of Women and Authority. She was rebaptized. So, yeah, just re-emerging Mormon feminism, 1992. And so, most likely she went over for 17th of March, 1842. Women in the priesthood would be my guess. They don't explain. And so, by being rebaptized, she had to denounce that, deny it. Never happened. It's not real. Women are subordinate to their husbands. Even though Benson changed the temple text in 1991 so that women only hearken to the counsel of her husband, no longer obey the counsel of her husband. See, there's a difference, women. You don't obey, you hearken. The man still presides, not rules, presides. Right? You're an equal partner. We love you. Yep, you no longer have to commit suicide now, right? All gone. It's been erased by Jesus. Right, Oaks? This is going to be 5 hours. Oh my God. And so, yes, knowing the past, you can understand what's going on right now. That's why I have an insight into church conferences than the average watcher. And it turns out that this was the worst conference ever. I was shut down and slammed hard on this one. Despite the one token breakout video, that was a church news video before conference. Dear God. Pathetic. Couple that with Mormons being scared. What, Jewish? No! Jesus is coming. He'll burn you, Travis. You'll be ashamed when you stand before him. Well, apparently you're claiming I won't stand before him. I'll never know he came because I'm wicked. Did you not read your scriptures on this? If you're wicked, you will never know of Jesus. You'll be burned, sent to spirit prison. Jesus will never come and see you because you're wicked. Only I mean, these are simple doctrines, Mormons. But because of your ignorance, you screw things up and make things up so that you can threaten other people. Moving on. Lavina Fielding Anderson. Again, another feminazi. If they're a woman, automatic feminazi. That's the immediate church name calling for any of the women who apostatize. They're a feminazi. And yes, Beam and Mode applies. The church supported Hitler in World War II, Moroni and the swastika. Yep. And then they welcomed the psychos performing human experimentation torture on the Jews in Utah. That's why Utah has the highest per capita of psychologists per citizen. Dear God. Even though they're all going to prison and their asylums getting shut down for their crimes and abuses. They still keep opening up more. They all came from Nazi Germany. They are all evil. And that's why they're in Utah in high concentration. That's why they are imprisoning and enslaving just hundreds of thousands of Utahns. And women especially are vulnerable to these Nazis who are being told, oh, you're criticizing the church? I think you have depression. Here's some drugs to kill you with. Highest per capita in the universe. Sick and wrong, the abuses of this church. She was excommunicated for her article, the LDS intellect. Oh my goodness, women and intellectualism do not merge. Community and church leadership. Yep, feminazi. So yes, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I love to mock Oaks, who came out and said, women have no divine right to priesthood and priesthood office. And then I show the 17th of March, 1842. Yep. Priesthood and priesthood office by Joseph Smith. Bleep you, Oaks. He's next, women. If the church wins, he's next. And finally, number 6, D. Michael Quinn. Mormon historian, among other studies. He's not very good. He makes the mistake with some other historians that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. Like I said, evidence, not hearsay, not people's journals, not people's false testimonies, not witness statements. You can't trust those as primary sources. Evidence. You've got to have everything set up. Evidence. Do not trust somebody just because they say something that you think must be true, so therefore you've got to defend the church. Likewise, he's trying to defend the church. It's just that the church didn't want polygamy released. Because it's not because they don't want people to know, it's because they made an agreement with the United States multiple times because of their disobedience that they would not discuss polygamy. And so Heber J. Grant, in turning Mormons into more of an evangelical Christianism, just erased polygamy history. Except they left section 132 in, removing Joseph Smith's section 101 of the 1835 edition of the Book of Mormon on monogamy. And so instead of showing that, okay, we are not going to teach polygamy, here's Joseph Smith section 101, we're putting it back after Brigham Young took it out the year before he died and put in his section 132, and the lies about him demanding Emma allow him 10 child bride virgins or she's going to be destroyed, as that Mormon myth got passed around even till when I was a kid, and still to this day, as Mormon apologists talk about it. No, it was all a made-up lie. It never happened. Evidence, people. The evidence tells you that Joseph Smith was framed and blamed and punished. Do your research. Don't spread the lies. And so, yeah, Heber J. Grant did not put back section 101. He kept in section 132. But we now have the 1890 manifesto in our canon. It's not considered part of the Doctrine and Covenants. It's an official declaration. But we still have section 132. It's a forged document. It is Brigham Young. It is not by Joseph Smith. But for D. Michael Quinn to be a Mormon historian shows you how the church dumbs their students down, dumbs the teachers down. And that's the reason why. Don't use science, you might learn the truth. And so those who do their research on the church will hover over you, spy on you, to make sure that you don't go beyond the mark. And again, understand, he thinks the church is true. You know, we got all these fundamentalist groups practicing polygamy, but it's not to cover up that the Church of Brigham Young was practicing polygamy. It's to cover up that Brigham Young framed and blamed Joseph. That is the ultimate reason for the church's cover-ups of those who get excommunicated. And so when anybody is heading down this path in doing research, they immediately shut them down, making them believe, and thus others who find out about it, believe that it's, oh, we don't want people to know that Joseph was practicing polygamy. No, it's they don't want anybody to know Joseph Smith was framed and blamed and punished, murdered for monogamy. All right. So, I need a holy bread, I drink with jam and bread. Now we get to, after that 37-minute introduction, getting rid of the unbelievers. No, Joseph Smith is evil. Inspired by God to be evil. See, on this, both Mormons and anti-Mormon, antichrist, apostate, Korah whores agree. No, you're both wrong. Nonetheless. All right. So the first infamous character to start with, going back to the beginning. Johann Adam Weishaupt, born 6th of February, 1748. Died 18 November, 1830. Dum 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 dum. He was a German philosopher, professor of civil law, and later canon law, and founder of the Illuminati. May 1st, 1776. And we won't read over all of this to try to keep the video as short as possible, under 4 hours. But we do need to have you understand the facts from the evidence. There were 4 other guys that joined his Illuminati group. And so 5. The reason why, and thus Illuminati, is because of the Bible of Isaiah, which they had the King James Version, in which Lucifer is in the text in Isaiah. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? That only came from the Latin Vulgate. And so the Freemasons who wrote the King James Version of the Bible carried over Lucifer from the Latin Vulgate. Their reason for this was the Enlightenment period. I meant to check, and I just got so involved trying to gather all the pictures, and I'm going to have to make new pretty pictures, and obtaining stuff that I didn't find. My vast, unorganized files. Oh my God. Age of Enlightenment. This is the dawning of the Age of Enlightenment. Age of Enlightenment. And I see the pictures are back up and working now that conference is over. Bastards. Cyber terrorism all. So hold on here while I obtain stuff for the documents. The Age of Enlightenment, also the Age of Reason and the Enlightenment period, was an intellectual and philosophical movement taking place in Europe from the late 17th century, so 1600s, end of the 1600s, to the early 19th century, the beginning of the 1800s. So yes, you do need to know about certain people who wrote certain books right before Joseph Smith and the church. I've done the research papers on that when I was at the University of Lethbridge. Dialogues concerning natural religion being the most dominant that I found in Joseph Smith's works. Fine. Trying to keep it below 4 hours. Dialogues concerning natural religion, David Hume. This should be in my files. It was my textbook also. And so yes, the first missionaries going to England the people were influenced by David Hume and that book. The early Mormons who joined in England and Wales all knew about David Hume and that work, and they joined the church as a result, even though the missionaries were Brigham Young. We're getting to it. We're getting to it. We're getting to it. But they're not talking about the Greeks. God. Rene Descartes' Discourses on the Method. I don't think I have this. It's in français. Only 32 pages? Are we sure it's the full book? Yeah, I guess so. You did a double space, so it makes it 64 pages. We aren't including the part 6. Is that all? Part 6, yeah, okay. It's a simple download. Now added to the collection. What they're not telling you in Wikipedia is that with the creation of Christianity came the Dark Ages. They shut down all of the learning of science and logic of the Greeks. Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, morons. I died that day. You can die too for all I care. 5 hours later, dear God. And so, yeah, it went extinct. The Holy Roman Empire had erased the sin of science and logic. Now, faith promotion, spiritual witness feelings in Jesus, a musion, not real, spread worldwide, as now everybody was concerned that they shouldn't take a bath because they'll have to take off their clothes, and thus they're porn, and thus sinful. And so then they'd contract diseases and blame the Jews as witches. And oh, don't even get me started on how they treated women. All by denying science and logic of the Greeks. That they merely got from the Egyptians, but anyway. And so this Enlightenment period was when, oh, what is this? Plato, you say? Aristotle? Socrates? Yeah. The documents were found by people doing church history research. And so by reading them, they then began to restore science and logic. That's what this whole period was about. Because after all, the Gutenberg Bible got published, and see how we destroyed Catholicism from it? With the Protestant movement, the Reformation. And so, yeah, this was during that time period. They learned not only that the Christian church is an abomination, abusing the people and the masses, but have taken over government. You sure you want the church to win, huh? But also science and logic. As the Catholic Church is infamous for their torture and murders of scientists who were studying from these Greek documents. And thus, Freemasons began to emerge. Freemasonry was good in the beginning. Nonetheless, Johann Adam Weishaupt had a more malicious intent, in which he thought, let's murder everybody and steal so that we destroy and thus start all over. Because those in power aren't going to listen to science and logic. They're murdering people who pursue that course. And yet, as time has gone by, we have seen the advancements in science and logic that had been lost. Astronomy as the one big one. because the Jews knew it. They gave you dates for the latter days. Guess who's been telling you? And so this Illuminati was formed with the vision of liberating humans from religious bondage to undermine corrupted governments. And thus anarchy and the anonymous guy, all that stuff that you only know about from Hollywood liberties, literal history documentation, like Galaxy Quest. But nonetheless, Freemasonry also was a part of this. And he began in Germany with his little band of merry men going around robbing and destroying things in the society. They outright called themselves the Illuminati, so that the press was explaining it's the Illuminati who caused this latest attack. And eventually the government, learning that it was this Illuminati group doing all this damage, would eventually clamp down on them as they would add more people to their ranks. And they had to go underground. And so what they then began doing from that point was to infiltrate an already established group so that they're not forming their own group. Thus people go, oh, what? You're a part of a new group, huh? Then people would want to know, and then they find out, and then you get busted, like the Illuminati did. And so you infiltrate in already established groups that nobody is investigating. Nobody thinks to check. And then you rise up in numbers, rise up in rank, take over leadership, destroy it, and start all over. That's their new plan of attack now. And they were doing this all over Europe, as many people love this idea of taking down corruption in government and religion and the economy. With the United States of America rebelling against King George, independence, Revolutionary War, yeah, this got the attention of the Illuminati. And so, 1880, there are reports of Illuminati attacks in the United States of America, the new nation, with the experiment of a constitutional republic, if we can keep it. Nope. And 1812, the War of 1812, when Canada burned down the White House. Trump said it, why would he lie? Those Canadians. Eh? It was the Brits. Duh. With Nathaniel Rothschilds. Or Rothschild. And so, yeah, it was over. The 1812 war was because the new United States decided to do away with their central bank of Nathaniel's. Britain. Because he helped with the Illuminati, becoming an Illuminati member himself. And so the Napoleon War, oh, he pulled a fast one to do away and collapse all of the banks in England to be the monopoly. quite the scam on that war. But nonetheless, likewise, he's upset that the central bank that Nathaniel is involved in was being done away with by this new American group. And so yes, it wasn't just him funding the Brits' war on America again, but it was also used to send in Illuminati to infiltrate into America. And we learned from William Morgan, who was in that War of 1812, that he had found out about this plot by the Illuminati to do the same thing that they've been doing: infiltrate, rise up in number, rise up in rank, take over leadership, destroy, start over, burn to the ground. From the ashes, rise up with a new world order. He had found out that they had come into America and entered into Scottish Rites Freemasonry, and were going to use Scottish Rites Freemasonry to render an attack on America in the 1820s, 1830s, that they were preparing for an attack on America. And so he needed to find a press that would fund him so that he can write a book to warn the Americans about it. And he found the Batavian Press with David Miller, who fronted him the money, and so he used the money to pay for the home there in Batavia, New York, with his wife and children, and could not work on the book at home. He had to find somewhere else to secret himself to make sure that this book gets published. Nobody can know about this book until it is finished and published, and then it'll be too late. We gotcha! And he found a Master Mason at the Lodge of Canandaigua, New York, Ontario, number 23. And don't give me grief. Don't do it. And there he worked in the lodge on the book with the assistance of the Master Mason, Joseph Smith Sr. And what is required is that they've got to figure out how to have it encoded, rather than coming right out and exposing everybody and naming names and giving dates and their plot of using the Bible astronomy dates of the latter days for their ultimate attack for the latter days, when Christians believe Jesus is coming for the latter day burning and coup of governments. Yeah, this Illuminati group is now going to be Jesus. They're going to do it because they know Jesus isn't real, but they know Christians believe it. And so that is their cover. And so William Morgan knows this whole plot. And they work on it, and they get 116 pages done. And he's found out. And so the tavern in town, he's falsely arrested, and then he's falsely arrested again on 9/11/1826. And so the document has to be hidden. Somebody else needs to finish writing it. The scribe has to change. It can't be the same scribe. Joseph Smith Sr. cannot be connected to this at all now. Crap, it was at his lodge. And so everybody has to distance themselves from this document, because the enemy now knows that William Morgan was working on it. They know he had a number of pages written already. And so Smith had to get William Morgan out of the country to save his life, to distance him from the family, to save their lives. They can't have the family go with him, because then the enemy will know that they are likely out there and hunt them all down. He has to leave his family now in order to save everybody's life. And Smith, as the Master Mason, is the one responsible for making sure this happens. So he sends him up to Canada. There's an incident where Thomas Monroe found out about it and was going to leak it. And yep, he died. And they put on William Morgan's clothes in an attempt to give time for William Morgan to escape. Unfortunately, the wife of Thomas Monroe, when coming to identify the body, said, "Wait a minute, that's my husband. What's he doing wearing somebody else's clothes?" And so, yes, the enemy now knows William Morgan is still on the loose. They're still hunting for him. They're still hunting for the documents. Nobody can find it. And as the story goes, William Morgan was asked up in Canada, you can stay here, make yourself a living here, or we'll give you a horse. You can go to the East Coast, catch a ship, and sail away. And he did that instead. So, then the ship sank in a storm, rescued by fishermen, taken to the Caribbeans, and lived a life there, found a new woman to marry, started a whole new family, and one day while fishing, storm collapsed on his boat, saved by other fishermen from Bolivia, who this time took he and his family to Bolivia, where he then started a banana plantation that then sold their bananas in the American Gulf ports, where York Rite Freemasons were there to receive the goods, to keep the secret. There are no York Rite Freemasonry involved anymore. They're all gone. I put out the call. There is nobody. It is all the enemy now. The Holy Grail has been unguarded for decades. But, with them all dead, they couldn't tell the enemy that the Holy Grail is not being guarded anymore. Remember that Davidic king, the Holy Grail, the Mormon. It's been a long latter days, all by myself. With the assistance of Heber C. Kimball, we know all about this. He thinks he's being clever. He's not. He's exposing himself for who he actually is. In accordance with Wikipedia, and it's fine for this video, his actual journal has some additional information and some corrections, but what's given here is sufficient. he says in 1823. What happened in church history in 1823, Mormons? Second vision. Kimball received 3 craft degrees of Freemasonry. Did he? Joseph Smith in 1842, March 15th, was promoted to the 3rd craft degree of Master Mason for the Nauvoo Lodge. See what Kimball is doing here? He's writing this in this valley. In the lodge at Victor Flats. It is redlined, which I think they've taken out the red line highlighting, and it's just blank. It's apparently because they didn't want people to find out that it's Scottish rites, not York rites. Ontario County, New York. So you see what Heber C. Kimball is doing here? He's lying, but in his lies, he's putting in coded information that he knows that he is the enemy. In 1824, the very next year, he sent a petition to the chapter at Canandaigua, New York. He knows. To receive the York rite, good for you, you know that right. Degrees, no rank. Degrees are Scottish after Master Mason. York rite are ranks after Master Mason. They're the same, first 3 degrees in both, but then after that, it's degrees in Scottish rites, ranks in York rite. And so he did get it right. In the York rite, the 7th level rank is the Royal Ark Masonry. But what he is not telling us is that, 1, that was the rank of William Morgan. 2, you are not allowed prior to 9/11/1826 to become a Master Mason in the same year, let alone skip ranks, regardless of whether it's degrees or ranks, depending on the rite. Because after 9/11/1826, in order to get more people to come in, after what he's about to explain for you, they had to loosen up the restrictions. And thus why Joseph Smith became a Master Mason in just a couple of days, and why the Warsaw Lodge was pissed. Hey, wait a minute. You still have some old schoolers who want to stick to the old traditions, and they're pissed of the Grand Master of the Warsaw Lodge, Scottish rites, doing this for Joseph Smith. But this is how you collect the evidence, and when people give you hearsay, you correspond it with the evidence, and then you go, oh, wow, he's confessing to the crime that he committed. And that's how you're supposed to do police investigation of interrogating witnesses, because they're gonna oopsie. It's just unbelievable. Nobody does it. It's Only on shows, and they still do it wrong. And so he says his petition was accepted. Well, why doesn't he say it was Joseph Smith Sr.? He joined the church. He's writing about this in the valley. They're claiming they're the true succession of Joseph Smith's church. The father, he knows. Why isn't he telling us this? This would be awesome faith promotion. And thus you can understand why Wikipedia under Joseph Smith Sr. has been removing this, not wanting people to know. After I exposed it. It's real simple. Follow the evidence. Dear God. And so, no, his petition was not accepted. His petition was not contained in the documents preserved by Joseph Smith Sr. so that we knew that he was the Master Mason. Yeah, he saved the membership records and each of the person's ranks. If Heber C. Kimball was accepted for his petition, there would have been a document preserved. Joseph Smith Sr. preserved those documents. He knew what was coming. And so, yes, this was also a diversionary tactic because of the enemy wanting to find the book, exposing them in their latter-day plot. And so by doing this, Joseph Smith is letting the enemy believe that the membership records are the documents. Joseph Smith is the author of William Morgan's book about Freemasonry. It was 116 written typed pages, printed pages. Got to remove the cover, got to remove all of the pre-pages and all of the blank pages, and the number of actual printed pages is 116 in that original edition. And that is why Joseph Smith, in the introduction to the Book of Mormon, ta-da! Whoa! Wow, I never saw that coming. Tells us about the 116 lost pages stolen by Martin Harris. Joseph Smith was not a part of Freemasonry. Hiram was in Palmyra. Because of the rules and regulations pre-9/11/1826, which Heber C. Kimball acknowledges to try to cover up his lie. As he reported, anti-Masons burned down the chapter building in Canandaigua. Yeah, not just Canandaigua. All but 5 or 6 remained. What had happened was that a news reporter had learned about this William Morgan incident and wrote an article about it. And it got published all over the colonies and spread fear among the populace. Everybody now considered Freemasonry, regardless of degrees or ranks or whatever. It's all the same now, they're witches. And stormed all of the, except for 5 or 6, the temples and burned them to the ground. And so the picture of the Canandaigua Lodge that I have for you is post, and I didn't put that with the just redid this picture for you 2 different ways. I did one for conference. Put the wrong thumbnail picture up at first, I'm assuming. Certainly the Mormon employee wouldn't have changed the picture on me. Alright? Wouldn't dare! Which one should I bring up? Let's try this one. Yeah, they call it Canandaigua Lodge number 7. That's the replacement of Lodge number 23. And so that's not the original lodge of Joseph Smith Sr., but it's the one that replaced it in Canandaigua, and a picture was taken of it. So it gives you an idea of what the original one was looking like, or similar to looking like, just a regular home. And depending on when styles changed in the area for home building, you know, then you'd have to do your research on architecture of Canandaigua, when certain buildings were built and what they look like and so forth. But I'm assuming that because not too much time had passed before this one was finally built, that it should be somewhat close to the same. But that's not important for the evidence and facts of history. It's just a regular home is how they made them. All right. So yeah, this is the one where I put in the Book of Mormon passages and the Book of Revelation passages. The other one is just the straightforward, simple Joseph Smith, William Morgan, the book, 116 pages, Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith, Sr., William Morgan. Okay. So, yeah, that's it for Heber C. Kimball. Other than, this is where I've been telling you about Sidney Rigdon being the one who's clear out in Ohio, distancing, getting it done, and the exposure of church history of Harmony north of Pittsburgh, not Susquehanna County. Yeah, the church wants you to believe there was no Harmony north of Pittsburgh, even though it's still there to this day, whereas Harmony, Susquehanna County, no longer exists. In fact, it didn't exist when Joseph Smith Sr. moved to Palmyra from Vermont because of the Pony Express. You can't have 2 Harmonies in the same state. And so one had to change. Susquehanna did. And so even though that fact happened, when Joseph Smith was babysitting Martin Harris, and Martin Harris stole the 116 pages because Junior's firstborn son died, and then the Methodists kicked them out of Harmony because Joseph is a witch. And thus had to take his wife and her parents with him. And so they all went to the farm of Senior, because they're now homeless, as Martin Harris is with 116 pages just north in Palmyra, where his farm is, showing it to his anti-Mason committee in Palmyra that he was a member of, to see if there was anything there about that incident with William Morgan. And that's why Senior is just furious with Junior in section 3. That's Senior who wrote that. And so Junior was put on timeout for a whole year. And that's what he came up with. All right. Susquehanna used to be named Harmony. Let's have Mr. Hale, or Hales, go down and get himself land down there, and then have a sale of land to Junior for $2,000, the cost to publish a book that we need the money for to publish the book, but can't be connected with the actual publication of the book. And we'll put on the document that it's Harmony, Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, as it's right below where Junior was locked up for being a glass looker, witch, and where Joseph eloped with Emma in that same jail or courthouse. And so thus, Martin Harris will be none the wiser, because we can write Harmony, and he'll go, well, yeah, it was Harmony. And thus, if anybody, because the Methodists knew about Junior getting busted in March, right before it all hit the fan in September. 9/11, 1826. And so, yeah, a Mormon had sent me the link trying to prove that the church was true, that I was wrong, by sending me to that document from the Joseph Smith papers. Thank you. Oopsies. Yeah. And so Junior didn't really stay in a home there, because they first had to build the Hales home and then Junior's home. And so the whole thing with Oliver Cowdery, yeah, the Book of Mormon's now finished. They're now working on getting it published at this point. And so Senior has to rewrite the 116 pages during this time, and Sidney Rigdon, nobody knew about him yet. That would not be until 1834. Mormonism unveiled. Oops. Somebody knew about Solomon Spaulding and his manuscript found. Oopsies. But that's why Sidney Rigdon used that, is because he died. It never got published. So he assumed nobody knew about the book. Oops. Yeah, he would read it to the tavern folk in the community, and especially to his children as bedtime stories. Oops. How was Sidney Rigdon to know? There was no way for him to know, unless he did his check on Solomon Spaulding, where he came from and who his family is. And, you know, the press in Pittsburgh could do nothing with the manuscript. They can't publish it and make the money off of it. They can't do that legally. And nobody was claiming the book. Nobody was coming to pay the money to get it published. And so all they can do is either throw it away or give it away. That's why Sidney Rigdon was always hanging out at the press is so that he can buy or obtain other books for his library because of the accident that he had when he was younger that caused brain damage. And so his sermons required him to plagiarize other works in the making of his sermons because of the brain damage that he sustained. So it's real simple. There's nothing malicious, nothing criminal involved. It was the perfect plan to get the Book of Mormon published. And if you've been paying attention lately, because of Stanford, the questions he's been asking have allowed me to reveal to you the greater content in the Book of Mormon concerning Mosiah, which is the Christ from the the 18th dynasty, the first pharaoh, who was Mosiah. I don't know why Egyptologists don't know this. It's quite hilarious, actually, because technically the first pharaoh is pronounced by Egyptologists as Yah Moses. And so if you've ever heard me talk about Jesus as Isaiah, or Isaiah as Jesus, yeah, that's exactly what they did with the name Mosiah. Mosiah, Yah Moses. Jesus, Isaiah. It's just a flipping. It was a brilliant move. And so then Benjamin, likewise, in connection with Mosiah, as I did the other day for Stanford, because of his comment that he asked. All right? And so, the Book of Mormon gets published. Joseph Smith, on the 6th of April, 1830, organizes the church, and yes, it's tied to the Jewish calendar, as I revealed for you, as other predates that he would write about in 1838 have to do with the Jewish calendar. It's all Jewish. It's about the Jewish Christ. They are of the Knights Templar. They are the keepers of the Holy Grail. Senior makes Junior the pre-Holy Grail, Messiah ben Joseph. And so 1832 comes along, and then you have Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball joining the church. And I think this is where I need to take a bathroom break. We're at an hour and a half. I notice I'm not being cyber terrorized this morning. It's because he was working the last 2 nights, cyber terrorizing me then. I'll be back. Alright, Heber C. Kimball and Brigham Young joined the church in 1832. I was called out by a Mormon who demanded to know the proof that they went and converted their old Scottish Rites Illuminati brethren to join the church with them to destroy the church. It was real easy to do. I got the information directly from the church, their own website, with the article about the early mission of Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball. They reveal the information. They are the source document. That was the first assignment they did for their mission after joining the church and getting assigned to go to their hometowns, which were Scottish Rites territory, who were pissed that their lodge temples were burned to the ground. They want revenge on whoever was responsible. They were trying to find out who leak their plot to destroy America in the latter days, according to scriptural prophecy and time and day and hour. And we're pissed that everything was ruined and destroyed in that early in the 1820s of what they were planning to do then. And so here comes Heber C. Kimball, who figured it out. And that's why they joined. And then went back to their hometowns and said, "We found them." And so this is why Brigham Young didn't accept the Book of Mormon right away. It's because he didn't understand the bigger picture of who they were. It was Heber C. Kimball who figured it out, and that's why Brigham Young joined. And it is horrible about how he treated his wife, who was sick and dying and would die later that year when he was baptized. And using that as an excuse to destroy the church. And that's been removed from the Wikipedia page after I covered that video. Yep. And so, yeah, they were meeting with the elders in the hopes of healing his wife. And priesthood power to heal, yeah, it didn't work. She died. And so, obviously, if that happens, people don't believe in priesthood power to heal. Can't be the true church if you can't heal anybody and you're claiming that you heal people with your power of priesthood. But the people that did convert them, as I did the video, I think it was last year, were 5 men from, I think, Pennsylvania. We won't get into that detail because we're already over an hour and a half. But it's clear that the enemy found out that this new organization, like I said, that's why the Illuminati have to infiltrate already existing organizations to keep it a secret. All of a sudden, Joseph Smith Jr. is founding a new religion with a new book, and it's got both Jewish Kabbalah and Freemasonry in it, even though the 116 pages were rewritten. Yeah, this was very suspicious. The enemy knew. And yeah, Joseph Smith Sr. and Jr. knew that the enemy would most likely find them and do that same tactic of joining, infiltrating, rising up in number, rising up in rank, taking over leadership, murdering, destroying, burning. And rising up with a new world order from the ash. Is he going to be doing that all day now? Ruining this portion of the video? Dear God, don't you guys have work to do, or aren't you supposed to be deported? Or do they know where I live? Yeah, the new chief of police got an email this morning. So if I go missing and then this video never gets put up, you'll know why. But I'm sure it has nothing to do with me, that it's his own officers who are setting him up to be fired. It has nothing to do with me. Sister Mendenhall, homewrecker Mendenhall, will fire him for neglecting the homeless has nothing to do with me and what I reminded him of. No, not at all. You heard it here first, if you endured past the 1 hour and a half. And so, this was exactly their plan. New organization, let's infiltrate it, rise up in number, rise up in rank, take over leadership, destroy, burn to the ground, and start over with a new religious order. All for the ultimate goal of preparing for the latter days. And so that's what Brigham and Heber did, is brought in other Danites. The missionaries were them, and they went out to convert other people. And when they came across, the first wave of converts were these Scottish Rites Illuminati who were angry and wanted revenge. And that's why the 5 missionaries who converted Brigham and Heber were all part of this as well. And so, yeah, over 1,000 by 1838. But before we get to 1838, we have to talk about 1837. As Joseph Smith has been publishing administration duties and responsibilities in the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, as the Quorum of the 12 was established in 1834. Section 107 makes it very clear that only Joseph is to be a prophet, seer, and revelator, and have the keys as the president of the Church of the Christ of the Jews, Moses, not Peter, James, and John, which are the keys of the word seed of the 12 apostles. Keys of Moses is for the latter-day gathering, after the seed produces the fruit. Not a complicated thing, and yet they purposely were incorrectly interpreting scripture of Joseph in the Book of Mormon to deceive other Mormons who are illiterate, because there was high illiteracy in the United States in those early days. It cost money to get a college education. Hiram was the only child to get a college education. It's a popular one. It was even in the news under Trump. Can't remember offhand. I don't think it was Johns Hopkins. It was another one. But anyway, it was there in Massachusetts, right at the border of Vermont. But nonetheless, yeah, that's the church history of the doctor who comes to do the experimental surgery on Joseph's knee because of the sickness. Yeah, it was the same thing. And so that's why they were accused of being grave diggers, gold diggers, was because they were providing cadavers for the school, for the medical school, and also to pay to have Hiram go there to get an education. But we're not going over that in detail for this video. And so the Illuminati Scottish Rites were rising up in number, finding other Scottish Rites, and letting them in on the plot. We found them, let's do our thing for this religion. Here they come, they're coming to get me. And it very well could be. They turned off their... If you hear a banging on the door, you'll know and understand why. But 1 o'clock? Seriously? It took you this long, huh? And if you're gonna be evil, don't leak it. Don't have documents. Don't have a financial trail. It's real simple. But nonetheless, I mean, now that conference is over, I'm sure Judge Shelby is free to say the church is true now. Nothing to say here, move along. But he's still keeping us waiting, isn't he? And where did I leave off? And so they're using as their ploy the same thing that Constantine did, because this was why the Illuminati got started. They're upset with the Christian religion that is authoritarianism and abusive and murdering people who are learning science and being able to read the Bible for themselves and logic and so this is what they did to Joseph Smith as Jewish, Book of Mormon as Jewish, just like Constantine did to the Bible, which was Jewish, turning it Christian, another testament of Jesus Christ. Obviously they can't publish it as another testament of Jesus Christ because Joseph is around. And so they're telling their converts that it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're telling their converts that the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ, because these Christians are still blinded and stupid from the dark ages of Christianity. Joseph Smith talks about this. And yet, you get ignorant people who are illiterate joining the church thinking it's Christian, and for the most part, they are staying in their communities. The church is being built in their communities, and they're able to continue the false belief that the church is Christian, that the Book of Mormon is Christian, that Joseph Smith is Christian, and they are none the wiser. And as these Danites are interacting with the world and with Joseph under the guise, in Nauvoo, they always called Joseph the seer when he wasn't around. Today, the church will only call Joseph Smith the prophet. We read in the Book of Mormon with Ammon talking to King Limhi that a seer is greater than a prophet. That's why the Danites were mocking Joseph by calling him the seer, and mocking him now by demoting him to the prophet, even though the prophet is the term used by the author of the law of the Jews for the Jewish Christ. Deuteronomy 18 verse 15. But having demoted Joseph Smith with the inclusion of Jesus to replace the Jewish Christ, they demote Joseph. And so Joseph Smith in 1837 sets up the Kirtland Safety Society. They need a bank. They're in a town, they need a bank. They have to live in the world and render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And so despite Joseph Smith's documents talking about the way the economy should be and trying to harmonize it with the laws of the United States of America, not trying to go against the laws of the United States of America. To render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto the Lord what is the Lord's. And so talking about storehouses and treasuries, storehouses, regarding the temple and Mormons, every bishop is required to have a storehouse. And these Danites purposely were altering doctrine by turning everything Christian, and thus causing confusion if any member were to come into contact with Joseph Smith or to hear his words directly. They would be going, wait a minute, I thought we were Christian. And even though Joseph is using the Jewish author's quotes in the Book of Mormon, talking about the Jewish Christ, because of Christian replacement, it wouldn't catch on immediately to the general person. And if, by chance, a member is told by Joseph, no, we're Jewish, we're not Christian, then they would be offended because they thought it was Christian and they don't want to be a part of any Jewish church. And then they would leave. And then they would hate Joseph Smith and expose Joseph as Jewish, and then get other people to attack Joseph Smith as Jewish and destroy his church that way, so that the Danites don't have to do anything like that. But he was able to get away with it. Their plan was working perfectly. And so with this Kirtland Safety Society, you have Danites who are there in Kirtland who take out loans and decide we're not going to pay them back. And that's why Joseph was framed and blamed for the failure of the bank with the 17 lawsuits. Those Danites sabotaged him. Heber C. Kimball, as the mastermind with Brigham Young, was able to distance himself from the incident in Kirtland by being out on a mission. So when he comes back from his mission, hearing about what happened in Kirtland, he's all offended. How could Mormons do this? You see in the Joseph Smith papers from 1837 into 1838, 39, and even till Joseph dies, you see this Danite plot. As they're setting up forged documents, they get put into the Joseph Smith papers. Treated as if they were legitimate, because they're unable, they don't want you to know about Mark Hoffman forging documents of church history, and don't want you to recognize the forged documents of Brigham Young. They don't want you to make this connection. They want you to believe, fine, okay, rock and a hat, but we always called it the gift and power of God. They don't want you to know it was Sidney Rigdon. They don't want you to know about Canandaigua, New York with Joseph Smith Sr. They don't want you to know and make the connections that I have. That's why you're not dead, and they've been trying to murder me. Cyber terrorizing me, committing all kinds of crimes, chasing me around, trying to lock me up, trying to murder me. That's why I'm here. And that's why what's going on is going on. And so Joseph gets out, and he's back, and he's working on the 1838 history. Brigham Young would eventually make forged documents in 1838 to try to set up how everything happened, and this also led to an oopsie, a mighty big oopsie, because Thomas B. Marsh is the one who sent an affidavit to the governor of Missouri that caused the extermination order of Mormons. And in this affidavit, he exposes this Scottish Rites Illuminati as a secret combination consisting of all that are considered true Mormons, calling themselves the Danites, Hebrew for judges. And they make oaths to support the heads of the church. There's only one, it's Joseph. What are you talking about? And that what they say or do, whether right or wrong, is acceptable, and thus justifying their criminal activities and behaviors. And so the war, which is wrongly called the Mormon War, was actually them reenacting their latter-day plot. And what they did was try to tamper with the election in Gallatin, or Daviess County. I'm not sure, I don't know if it was Gallatin or what actual town it was, but Daviess County. There was an election held that year in 1838. The Danites were using their secret headquarters as what they were calling it, Adam-on-Diamond. And with this election, there was a man running for office on the platform of having a vision to develop the land that the Danites were secretly occupying and calling Adam-on-Diamond. And so obviously they can't have this. It's their land, that's where they meet in secret. And so the call went out to the Danites to come to this election at the polling station to make sure that the guy does not win the election. And there was a big mob of over 1,000 men. And it got so heated that Stuart's third great grandfather was the first one to get punched to the ground to start the war. The one who was in Congress, and then Curtis ran to replace him. That's Stuart. Curtis also, his third great grandfather was also there. And Cox, his third great grandfather, was also there. Thanks to the Book of the Law, released for Thanksgiving 2023, rushed to have it put out because the church was still expecting something potentially, which is interesting. But you also have October 7th, 2023. And so that's why they also rushed it. But nonetheless, we'll get to Oaks in a minute. Maybe 5 hours. And so they, after the election, they went to both the sheriff and a judge in the county, over the county, and threatened them to sign an affidavit saying that it's Joseph who's demanding that they decertify the election. And thus started the war. You've got over 1,000 men showing up at your home, threatening to murder you and your family and burn your home to the ground if you do not sign it and admit that it's Joseph Smith. And so, yeah, the same pattern. Burning people's homes, raping the women, murdering the men, stealing the property, and we are told taking them to the bishop's storehouse at Adam-on-Diamond, which he calls Diamond, which is interesting, even though we know it as Adam-on-Diamond, but they're calling it on-Diamond or Diamond. Very interesting. And they spell it wrong. He spells it wrong. But again, illiteracy is very high in those days. And they then put out the call to those whom they converted and to others, as Thomas B. Marsh got Joseph Smith framed and blamed for the Danites, as the affidavits of the judge and the sheriff weren't as necessary, because this apparently did the job for the governor. And so Joseph Smith is in Liberty Jail. And you have the Danites now under the top leadership of Brigham Young, who's now calling himself the president. Even with Thomas B. Marsh still in the church. Hadn't signed his affidavit and left yet. He hadn't heard about this Gallatin incident yet. Oh, there's Adam-on-Diamond prior to. We marched to Adam-on-Diamond, which is interesting. He calls it Adam-on-Diamond, and then calls it Diamond. Interesting. Interesting. So yeah, 116 is a forged document. I've done the videos. That's why we know that is their coded speech for their coup. As Thomas B. Marsh says, that they told him the plan is to take the United States and ultimately the whole world. Coup of the governments, destroying the economies. That's why this is crucial to know, is that these Danites were taking responsibility, saying, we are the enemy, this is our plot, this is our plan. And it's in the latter days. And so, with Joseph Smith out of the way, they're now going around telling Mormons, join us. They've locked up Joseph. Joseph has given orders to war against America, Missouri specifically. And this is where Thomas B. Marsh says, oh hell no, we're crossing a line here, because of what they were doing. Burning down the towns, murdering the men, raping the women, stealing the property, taking it only to Adam-on-Diamond. Not to Kirtland, not to Far West, the new place after Kirtland and the failed bank. And so Thomas B. Marsh is out. Other Mormons who joined the right name of the church with the right religion were also threatened. David Whitmer was one such person. Join us, or we murder you and your family. And so, yeah, he left the church. You got Sidney Rigdon doing the salt sermon, not fully aware of what's going on, but thinking that it's apostates who are involved with this. And so you have these Danites who are threatening Mormons to join or die. And this is crucial to understand when I do church news videos about a certain individual, to find out what impact were they influenced by the Danites. Were they converted to the right church in the beginning, or were they converted by a Danite? Did they betray Joseph in 1838 by being deceived by these Danites? And that's how I know, because of the factual information of these Danites and what they did. I'm able to now go to any Mormon during this time period and do the check to see. And then as I go over the rest of their information, I go, yep, that's why. So Benjamin Franklin Johnson, baptized in the right church. Then moves his family to Adam-on-Diamond. It's not an official town. He is moving there because of the election. They want to get him to help rig the election, to count his vote for their party member. And instead, he tells his story in this valley that upon moving to Adam-on-Diamond in 1838, hooligans locked him up. Well, it's the Danites. They're the only ones there. They imprison him and threaten him to deny the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No. You're able to see what Thomas B. Marsh and David Whitmer are talking about with the lie of Benjamin Franklin Johnson. That's the threat. Deny Joseph Smith and join us. And so the whole misfiring of the pistol or rifle, no. He joined. He converted to the dark side. And so that's what other Mormons were doing. See, the Mormons who were converted by Danites, they easily joined because they thought all of this was true. But those who were not and converted by the true church, the Church of the Lamb, were the ones who most often did not join these Danites, and thus were threatened and kicked out of the church, just like Thomas B. Marsh and David Whitmer and others. And so these Danites later on would frame and blame these disloyal members like Sidney Rigdon, Hiram Smith, Emma, Sidney Rigdon's daughter, to use them against Joseph Smith, to call them apostates. So that's easy to catch if you were to know the real church history, and not use those women to frame and blame Joseph further as an anti-Mormon, antichrist, apostate, Cora whore, feminazi. Okay? So here's how we know all of this is oopsied. The year before Brigham Young died, he put in section 117 So pay attention to verse 11. See, this is 1838, July 8th. Must be true, must be by Joseph. Remember, they're telling people Joseph is in charge of this Danite band. He's in charge. And everybody has to give loyalty to Joseph. But it's not Joseph, so it's the other people who are giving the orders claiming it's by Joseph. And so, Joseph is apparently telling Newell K. Whitney, be ashamed of the Nicolaitan band. That's code, because it's from Revelation chapter 2, verses 6 and 15. So no, the Nicolaitan band does not still exist on earth. And I've done the video about the Christian tradition of who this Nicolaitan band is. And that's crucial to understand these Danites, because there it is. They only know the Christian understanding of this Nicolaitan band. Swapping wives. Not just brutal murder. That is the Christian tradition of this band. And here it's being used in the context to describe the Danites. Why aren't any of the feminazis catching on to this? Joseph Smith is telling Newell K. Whitney to be ashamed of the Nicolaitan band and of all their secret abominations. And of his littleness of soul before me, saith the Lord, and come up to the land of Adam Ondi Amen. Oops. And be a bishop unto my people. Adam on Diamond was never licensed to be a city. That's why the election, they wanted to develop it. They wanted to turn it into an official town. That's why the Danites, when they moved to Commerce, Illinois, and turned it into Nauvoo, they incorporated it as the city of Nauvoo. They got the legal certification. They filed the incorporation articles to make it official this time, because Adam on Diamond was not. And yet they're claiming Joseph Smith is saying that, oh yeah. And then section 116, right before this, forged document. Because it's about 40 years later when it was written, which means it was not written by Joseph. It was not by Joseph. It was made specifically for Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants to pave the way for section 117 to be put in. Newell K. Whitney was not the bishop. Newell K. Whitney was a part of the Danites who had a home there built in that Spring Hill area in an unincorporated land that the Danites were using as their sacred headquarters. And the lie reveals the truth. And so, yes, it is horrifying to learn how evil these Mormons are, calling themselves true Mormons, calling themselves the Danites. So Joseph Smith would get out and give his 8 19 July 1840 sermon that Brigham Young was just furious with. Na 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 na, Joseph Smith knows. And so, yeah. Then the 1851 Articles of Incorporation, after murdering Joseph Smith, as they're calling it, the state of Deseret, when Brigham Young is already the governor of the territory of Utah. And instead, this is a secret combination official document that they had recorded to incorporate, finally, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yep, section 115, also a forged document. It was 1851 when Brigham Young officially changed the name of Joseph's church to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with an official government that was Articles of Incorporation, which was unconstitutional, illegal, etc., because it's not the state of Deseret. He knew that. He was the governor of the territory of Utah. And so in April, they just changed it over to the territory of Utah. So when the United States shut it all down with the Edmunds-Tucker Act officially in 1887, they make reference to this fact that this incorporation that was changed in April, it is illegitimate and is dissolved. Officially dissolved. Church ceased to exist on the face of the earth ever since 1887. This church is not a church. They never reincorporated the church. Heber C. Kimball in 1923 only incorporated a corporation of the dissolved church. There is no church incorporation. And yet, he's claiming he's got a corporation using the church as chattel to pay for the corporation. And it's just, dear God, all of these crimes and cover-ups, and all for their latter-day plot. And so, we learn from Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. this plot for the latter days to take over the United States and ultimately the entire world, as Thomas B. Marsh told us. In the way to perfection. Yeah, this is why I'm living in this apartment now. It's because I exposed this. I found it. After October Conference 2021. I knew about the Mormon myth. We all knew about it. I had a dream on my mission about a priesthood meeting where Jesus appears. And then mental telepathy tells me I just barely made it. And so I wake up there in Massapequa Park at my bed that morning in a full sweat and panicked. What do you mean I just made it? What sin did I commit? Are you talking about my mission? Nevertheless. And so, by Voice of the Priesthood, page 291, as I've been constantly showing this in connection with Oaks, got leaked. The Gathering at Adam-on-Diamond, page 291, by Voice of the Priesthood. there will be a transfer of authority at the council in the Valley of Adam-on-Diamond, of government authority. Our Lord will then assume the reins of government. A transfer of government authority from the usurper and impostor, Lucifer, to the rightful king, Jesus Christ. That's a coup. This is a crime. This is a terrorist insurrection plot. This is the Danites. This is what they told Thomas B. Marsh. This is what William Morgan knew. The plot is on. And they're using it now to tell other Mormons who are not in the inner circle that it's Jesus who's going to do it. The second coming of Jesus is now mass murder and coup of government. Jesus is to blame. Now, Joseph Smith had already talked about this in the 1838 visionary account that Brigham Young did not want. So it was John Taylor, who was not quite in on the inner circle stuff, as he allowed the first and second vision to get published because of the Richards, the England mission president, who made up the pamphlet that included some of the Pearl of Great Price that we have, among some other documents. And that's why we have it. Otherwise, Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with it. He wanted nothing to do with translation. He wanted nothing to do with anything Jewish. Turned everything Christian. He even came out and confessed in 1874 in a talk where he says Joseph Smith was too stupid to come up with polygamy, that it was all Brigham's idea while he was on his mission in England after he fled the country, with the wrong name of the church on his license. And so Joseph Smith leaks further information on this. When this gathering is held, the world will not know of it. The members of the church at large will not know of it. Yet it shall be preparatory to the coming of in the clouds of glory of our Savior Jesus Christ, as he's claiming Joseph Smith said it. See, the Danites were still framing and blaming Joseph, but not being direct that it's them who are plotting and planning to do this in the latter days. They're going to blame Jesus. The second coming. The world cannot know of it. The saints cannot know of it. This is a secret combination. Nobody can know. That's why they had to shut down William Morgan. That's why they had to shut down Joseph Smith. That's why they had to turn the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith Christian, to cover it all up and hide it, and then use it to make money, to pay the Judas price, to do the collapsing of the economy, the mass murders of people, and the coups of government. So now we get to little Sister Jessica to wrap it all up, to be under 3 hours maybe. March 14th, 2020, before everything hit the fan that year. Before. I've been telling you repeatedly, putting this picture repeatedly as it's evolved over the videos. This is the latest. And I have to put it with Oakes's death threats to you. Remember the second coming of Jesus, mass murder and coup of government. They're talking about Easter this year, remember and look forward to the resurrection of Jesus. What? Yeah, the whole concept of the resurrection as a literal resurrection, as Oakes told us in his little video of tardive dyskinesia, is that the resurrection is literal. Christians have it wrong. The Jews didn't even mention them. Who wrote the scriptures about the resurrection? It's a Jewish resurrection, which has to do with Joseph Smith erecting the religion, Brigham Young insurrecting the religion, and that Davidic king resurrecting it. A second erection. They're talking about a literal zombie apocalypse. And that's why it is Brigham Young who introduced baptisms for the dead, to use the temple to extort Mormons to pay up, or your family is gonna burn in hell. Your ancestors are gonna burn in hell. Pay up to save them. But we don't have the keys of resurrection anyway. As Oakes tells us, quoting from Kimball. Oh my God. So yes, missionaries still to this day go around the world doing exactly what the Danites did. It's another testament of Jesus Christ where the Church of Jesus Christ were Christian. All to make money through tithing. Invested in the stock market. Destroying the interpretation of the parable of the talents that they used to justify it. Judge Shelby, still waiting for his ruling. Section 119, a forged document, is a criminal operation under the guise of religion. And so he says that 2020 and 2021 is not the end of the world, but merely a test, a trial run for the second coming. And then explains why Nelson has been making the hinge-pointing changes to the church. It's all for this big mass murder, theft, and coup to burn down the United States of America and the world, steal all the money, rape the women with polygamy, and rise up from the ashes with a new world order. Deseret 2.0. And I didn't find out about this until late last year, after conference, after the Tabernacles events. Because I was going, I don't understand what happened. The Exodus happened in 2020 and 2021. I parted the waters. Why didn't the fall occur? It's because Oakes said it was just going to be a test run. Just a test run. And so that's why this year and end of last year with Trump taking office is a direct pattern match for 2020 and 2021. It's just flipped. Like Jesus and Isaiah, Yah Moses and Mosiah. Just flipped. First shall be last, last shall be first. And that's why they are uncertain of when certain attacks would be made. That's why they were concerned with October 7th, 2023 is because they thought maybe the Islamists are going to do it that year to attack America with. And there were uprisings by Islamists, and there were occasional terrorist attacks by Islamists that the church had been laundering money to, calling it charity, to fund those criminal terrorist activities. And that's why Nelson had been coming out year after all those times. These are in the coming days, in the coming day, in the coming days, in the coming day. And then for conference, came out and said, we don't know the day and the hour. It's because, again, they didn't do it. The second coming didn't happen. Just like Oaks came out on the second. Okay, it didn't happen for George Albert Smith's prophecy that Idaho chick led me to. Are you singing along? And then resulted in Nelson or Oaks's monthly death threats. So the Easter message, death threat by Oaks. 2nd of January, death threat by Oaks. February 16th, death threat by Oaks. March 18th, death threat by Oaks. And then right before conference, death threat by Oaks. And then conference, everybody's talking about the death threat. As Nelson says, we don't know what happened. We made sure that Trump did his tariffs so that we can steal the money worldwide, but it was supposed to cause the burning, and it didn't happen. And so we're now waiting to see whether the tariffs are going to result in America saying enough and starting the Civil War, starting the World Wars. And it still hasn't happened yet. There are certain nations that are having coups right now, but it's not the big nations yet. We're still waiting. And so we got 15 minutes until the stock market closes. So let's find out what's happened. The Asian market already has gone down again, as I told you it would last night or yesterday. And then the European market was down as of this morning. Let's see. World stock markets. God. We gotta get rid of AI, guys. Gotta get rid of it. And yet it's everywhere. Whoa. Oh, wow. It skyrocketed. Major investment in the stocks here. Wow. And in Brazil and Canada. Wow, that is a shock. Asia tanked. America just took off today. Wow, they are pumping it back up to steal some more. Interesting. Did Trump cancel the tariffs then? Because it was supposed to take effect at midnight, both Canada and Asia, and yet Canada is massively up 1,285, and America is at 2,773. That is strange, because yeah, Europe also tanked as of this morning when they closed. This is wild. Asia and Europe tanked, but America skyrocketed up. Unbelievable. Okay. So yeah, understand the church is the major stockholder. They are doing this. So the church, it appears, either pumped it up, or other people thought, hey, the stock market is so low, let's get in on this. And so tomorrow the church will take it all away. Pay attention. This is interesting. So yeah, wow. But I've been telling you for years, pay attention to the stock market. After the whistleblower came out and exposed that the church is the heavy investor in the stock market, and that they're doing this for Armageddon, parable of the talents, the church is doing this. The church is involved in all of this to steal the money, destroy the nation, destroy the world, and burn it all to the ground so that the church gets their kingdom back. So, wow. So, yeah, they're dragging it out. Dragging it out. Because, yeah, everybody is concerned that prices are going to skyrocket, and so they're dragging it out. Saturday is the start of Passover. Oaks has threatened us that Easter, look forward to Easter. It's the day after Passover. So, yeah, this is disturbing that we have to keep on going. I want Zion. I want to be left alone by this church. They will not leave me alone. They have to punish me as they did the early Mormon saints for leaking the information, for exposing this church like Thomas B. Marsh did, and then framing Thomas B. Marsh and other Mormons who didn't give loyalty to them. The whole wife to blame for the milk skimmings, yeah, it never happened. Joseph was in Liberty Jail. He was still a member at the end of 1838 when Joseph got framed and blamed. Galatian, yeah, that was why. George Albert Smith lied, and this church uses George Albert Smith rather than the real church history to tell Mormons about. So, wow. 3,000. And if it's not the church, like Asian markets, or even yesterday, when the people were putting in a whole bunch of investments in, over 1,000 yesterday, and then at the end, boom, a tanking, yeah, that was the church who took it all away. They still leave some in there so that they can then take more out, because people are pumping up the church's stocks that they leave behind, and therefore they can then sell those stocks and make the money off of it. So, wow. Yeah, that's wild. But understand, that's why Trump is doing everything he's doing, is to take away the federal government, to give power to the individual states to choose how to run their own state the way they want to as a sovereign nation. 3 Nephi chapter 7. The Book of Mormon tells us all about their plot and plans. They got leaked. They leaked stuff. We know this is what they're doing. And so, yeah, the day-to-day activities are diversionary tactics. And so you have to look back at the bigger picture, and in retrospect, as I'm doing calendar years for you, this is what's going on. Is that all of this is organized by the church. They are in charge of this. They know what's going on. They are the ones controlling it. They put Trump in, they took Trump out, they put Trump in again. Trump is doing exactly what they've been plotting for 200 years. Strangers in Paradise, huh? Okay, so this big project is now completed. Now, to get it up for 3 years from now. 2.5 hours, huh? Okay. But yeah, this is why Mormons act and behave the way they do also. I probably should throw this in before I shut off the video. Is that this mindset of murder, rape, theft, lies, forged documents, cover-ups, this is all what they do. It's ingrained in them, and they pass it on generation after generation after generation. This is why Mormons to this day just freak out when anybody reads the Book of Mormon, and not just get a spiritual witness feeling that whatever they're told to believe is true. And so literate people should not be joining this church. If a person who claims to be literate is joining the church, it's because they didn't do what the scriptures tell them to do to learn the truth. They listened to the missionaries and fell for the con. Nobody in their right mind who uses science and logic would be a Mormon. They are anti-science. They are anti-logic. Oaks, especially on the forefront of this. Ballard. The knowledge of the truth destroys church history. There's a reason. This is why they do what they do. They are not true. They don't have authority. They are not a legitimate religion. They are a fraud. They are a criminal, terrorist, insurrectionist organization. Their main goal is to overthrow the world governments and get their kingdom back. And they will burn this church to the ground to rise up with the new world order. This is why I warn Mormons. They will sacrifice you to get their kingdom back. They know Joseph Smith's prophecies of them burning down this church so that they can destroy the Book of Mormon, destroy Joseph Smith, and then rise up from the ashes with those who survive with Big Brother 1984 Lucifer. Albert Pike, his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. That's the plot. It's the same as the church. And I didn't do John C. Bennett. I meant to cover him too. There's just so much involved in this. John C. Bennett was converted late, before Joseph Smith died, and was put in Joseph's presidency as a counselor. And he had been indoctrinated by the Danites, being told that Joseph approves of polygamy and having sex with other men's wives, and oh, you're involved in abortion elixirs? Great, we could use you. And so, not knowing that he's not supposed to tell Joseph Smith, that it's don't tell Joseph, because if you do, Joseph will say, no, I am not ordering this. I'm not, what are you talking about? You're doing it? You're excommunicated. John C. Bennett is excommunicated because he confessed to Joseph that he was doing it. He thought Joseph was doing it, and so he told Joseph he's doing it. And Joseph Smith said, no, I'm not doing it. Thanks for confessing, though. You're out of the church. And so he's upset. The Danites won't take him back now because he got exposed by Joseph. They can't have him come to them because Joseph now knows John C. Bennett is doing it. And so if he goes to the Danites to take cover, Joseph will know who these Danites are now. And so he has to leave altogether. And he goes and forms his own Illuminati Halcyon order. Big tip-off. And I should have also brought up Brigham Young. After murdering Joseph Smith, he alters the outside of the Nauvoo temple to put the inverted pentagrams on. And so you have the sunstone of Joseph Smith at the bottom for the rising sun of Joseph Smith and his religion. But the sun at noonday is now the inverted pentagram of Lucifer that Isaiah says doesn't ascend to heaven because of the sun and its great brightness blocking out the light of Venus. And then at the top, for the setting position, is the Jewish star. The Jewish religion is setting. Joseph Smith was prevented from rising as Lucifer made it to the sun at noonday position, usurping Joseph Smith. Pictures as symbolic coded messaging. And so thus the Logan Temple has it on the window. The Salt Lake Temple has it as the keystones of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple. The doctrines of Lucifer are taught within. The covenant path, Lucifer by Brigham Young. Bondage, taking away agency, death as a penalty. Underwear with the Freemason square and compass to remind you of your loyalty and your sexual abuse by this church. And then the son, Don Carlos, is the one who made the Eagle Gate. Again, symbolic of Lucifer, the foundation of Temple Square, with the beehive and the eagle on top. And it points directly to the state capitol, just like the inverted pentagram roads from the law, I think also in 1887, that form the inverted pentagram, taking you right to the White House to coup the government in the latter days. And so, yes, Joseph Smith running for president. They were initially going to use that to get Joseph Smith into the presidency and then have him assassinated. And whether or not Sidney Rigdon goes along with it, Brigham Young has his alternate government, the secret combination government, the Council of 50, already in place for this. And then Brigham Young would then have Sidney Rigdon do the martial law on the United States to suppress those who murdered Joseph and take over the government and blah, blah, blah. But because of John C. Bennett and the Nauvoo Expositor, that was their other opportunity to take out Joseph and do the whole cooing of the religion and changing it. But it worked so well, they had to flee the country, come to this valley. As you then have the Confederates, who then go to the South after 9/11, 1826. And they build up until they go up against Abraham Lincoln with the Civil War, doing the exact same thing, trying to coup the government, burning and all that stuff. The inverted pentagram on the Confederate flag, put it horizontal. There they are. They also know of the location of New Jerusalem, by the way. X marks the spot. That is the Jewish revealed location, time and day, day and hour, as well as for the Davidic Christ king, who would be a Mormon. Too bad you don't believe. If you've made it this far, I think you believe. Otherwise, you're a strengthening church members committee member who has to listen to the whole video and then return and report to Nelson and Oaks. Alrighty, so we'll just put in a limited number of pictures for you to make this as quick as possible, even though it's going to take hours, and it's time to do the stats for the day.